بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In this presentation I'm going to tell you about the way that I look at a text for translation and what exactly I do. In my case, what I do is to look into philosophies that have evolved in human history since the Greek as early as Plato. However, I'm not going to mention them by name. They are hidden between the lines, so to speak. And it's up to you to understand exactly what philosophy I'm talking about. I don't have any reason to exclude a given philosophy, and my hypothesis is that every philosophy has assets and every philosophy has liabilities. It's up to the translator to apply the right philosophy in the right place and for the right purpose. Now, in this last presentation, I'd like to try to bring all of these things in one framework. In one presentation, it's not very ideal to bring all of these thoughts, to bring them on the same boat. But we will try to do that in order to make an explanation about everything that we have been discussing so far. And I hope that you can hear me well, yes. If you have any question, please just raise your hand and I will answer your questions. This is the Sindibad, Adventures of the Sindibad. It was produced in the 1970s, I think 1978 or 1976, I'm not sure. However, it was made in Japan and then translated into several languages in the world, including Arabic. And I'm assuming for the time being that somebody somebody comes to me and says, please, I want you to subtitle or to make the dubbing of this series for the children. And it's going to be from any language into Arabic. This is the question. So how do I do with this and how do I translate this? There are two options. The first one is to try to follow some kind of rules, some kinds of basic principles, and the other one is just to do it haphazardly. And we will assume that all of us are rational people and sane people, and we would like the whole process to be successful in translation. For that reason, I'm going to put some principles in order to work on. Remember that this is a series, and if it is mistranslated, what will happen is that it will backfire and the author is going to be losing lots of money. And this is another issue, of course. For that reason, I have to make some principles, some rules. And I would like to imagine that I'm working alone on this, and let's see what will happen. These are just some screenshots from the videos. And I'd like just to have these notes. These notes are just for me to understand, to remember what I'm saying. So the first step that I'm going to do, this is the first principle, is first to sit with the client and to meet with him, to understand his purposes, because I know that translation is a purposeful activity. It's not something that we do for fun. It's something we want to do in order to achieve a purpose. And this is usually the purpose of the client. It's not my own purpose. Now, after I understand the purpose, I write down everything that he wants, and he's telling me that he wants to translate it into Arabic in a way that can be used for dubbing, for subtitling, for whatsoever reason, but he wants it to be acceptable to the audience in Arabic, and he wants to make a good selling of it. So I take this brief. Now, the second step is I want to see what are the characteristics of the English and Arabic audiences, because this is from English into Arabic, it's going to be translated in this direction. And I first of all look into the Arabic audience and to see what is the audience that I'm going to address, because it's going to change the way that I translate if I follow the ethno-linguistic theory. Now, what happens here is that there are the children. And how old are the children? The children are between the years 5 to 11 to 12, etc. This is the children. This is usually from 5 to 12. In the Arab world, at least on the schooling period, it is from 5 to 12. And since we know, or at least many of us know, that the cognitive development, according to Jean Piaget, differs between the year 2 to 5 and the 5 to 11, then we understand that from the year 5 to 7, the child is at the pre-operational stage. where he can understand symbols, and this is a very good thing for me as a translator, he still cannot attain concepts, because concept attainments happens only after the year 7, from 7 to 11. And this is for that reason maybe we have the school system at 7, starting at 7 in the first grade, because this is the assumption that in the cognitive development model, as a student will be able to understand the concepts starting from age 7 and not from earlier than that. So I take this note and say that children can understand the symbols, which is very important for me. And again, the concepts a bit, we have a problem with it, because not all of the children that we want to address understand concepts. Concept attainment is going to be very difficult for them. Concept attainment is going to be only for from 6 or 7 years until 11 or 12. And remember, we're talking about Arab children. So we know that these are Arab children, and we know about their needs, and we know that mainly they can deal with symbols, but not with concepts or concept attainment. Now I look at other things here. What are the ethics that I want to transfer to them through the videos? Now, first of all, which is very important, I have to see what kind of ethics that I have to teach them through the translation. But here there is a problem here, because if I remember Spinoza, who says that something about predetermination or determinism, in other words, the video is already made, the cartoon is already made for me. So I cannot change the cartoon if I don't like it. I have to accept the cartoon as it is. In other words, I am predetermined. In other words, there is a destiny that I am predetermined to meet on the video. However, that doesn't really mean that I don't have the freedom to do something, and I really have the freedom in my translation, and I can think about it now. I have the freedom in translation in terms of the words that I choose, in terms of the expressions that I choose, in terms of the tone that I can ask the voiceover artist to use. So I really have some kind of freedom. It's not a matter of being just predetermined to do something. So I still have the freedom, and this is something that gives me a kind of relief. However, I have to know how to use the freedom, but most importantly, how to use this freedom, and it's very important. So I get this kind of videos now. We have the whole process here. We have the whole process, which is the gestalt now. It is to look at the whole series as one whole. And I am asking myself, I want to see the whole series so that I can see the episodes and I can see what's happening inside the series. I can see the whole in order to understand the parts. This is what I do. So next step is that to have an idea about the whole series from the very beginning until the end, in order for me to understand what's happening there and what kind of experience do I have inside this series. Can you hear me well, by the way? Somebody's raising their hands, I think. تفضلي.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
دكتور, هلا هم لما عملوا السيريز في جابان, it's not directed to Arab children. كيف اخترنا إن يعني كيف اخترت إن كيف المترجم اختار إنه التراك it to forward it to Arab children?
Well, somebody asked me, for example, this is what I'm suggesting. عرفتي كيف؟ أنا عم بقترح إنه أنا حدا حكى معي. أنت سؤالك إنه مدام باليابان شو اللي جابه للقارئ العربي؟ أنا افترضت إنه حدا حكى معي وقال لي بدك تترجمه من الإنجليزي للعربي.
بس ما هو مترجم للعربي.
Okay, I know that. بس أنا عم بحكي إنه هيك الفرضية. عم بفترض إنه أنا بعام 1976 أنا اللي ترجمته.
Okay.
No worries. So I'm now looking at the series itself. Thank you for your question, Tarub. So I'm now thinking about the video, the whole series. I'm thinking about it in the English language, and I want to translate it from English to Arabic. And I am now asking myself now before that, let's see, why do I look at the series itself, all of it, in order to see the gestalt, but also because I want to see the experience that exists there. Because the experience that is very important for me, the experience of the cultural experience, the social experience that exists there, if there is anything that has to be understood. And I have then to look from the ethno-linguistic theory perspective into the experience of the target audience, which is the children that I have in the Arab world. And here, because I'm using Grand and restless thought about it, which is called equivalence, is in the experience of the reader, target readership. So I'm trying just to match the experiences there and to see if they are good or not. And I found that something is wrong with it. Let's see some of the examples. Now in this example here, we have Sindibad in the island, and in the island he meets an old man, and that old man happens to be a demon. And the English says he's a demon of the desert, of the island, and that he kills people. And then in order to get rid of the demon, what Sindibad does is to bring some kind of grapes, grind it, and then try to make wine from it. And he says this is wine. So this word that I had is really alarming to me, because I know in the experience of the children, not only it is not something that they understand, but also it's prohibited in their religion, basically in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, if we consider them, because this is portrayed as a Muslim person, and we have Muslim people in the Arab world. Their children will not be able even to understand what wine is at that stage. So this is my decision as a translator, and it's what I understanding. And I believe that the client told me from the very beginning that he doesn't want to waste all his money because of misinterpretation or mistranslation. For that reason, I think that here I have to be very cautious about matching the experience of the West with that of the East and trying to do something in order to make the change. So what should I do in this? For that reason, what should I do? Now, first of all, what I want to do is a number of things. The first thing, after I get this idea that I have to do this matching between the two experiences, is the fact that I have to look at the values first as a story, because this is a literary work, so to speak. It's taken from Arabian Nights, but obviously the Japanese authors or compilers or producer or whatsoever wanted to pass on some values about the film. Otherwise, the child is not going to identify with the protagonist, which is Sindibad and his friends. Otherwise, he's not going to be interested. There must be values there. Now, I reviewed the whole series and tried to see the values, and I found the values are follows. There is the value of sacrifice first. There is friendship, there is courage, there is patriotism, the love of one's country. There are many things that are there. And those things, first of all, the first thing that appears to my mind is that they will influence the way that I write, the choices of the words that I do. But most importantly, and this is very important, I would like to ask myself, these are 52 episodes. 52 episodes. I would like to ask myself the question, what would happen if the child forgets something from episode 1 and I need to bring it back in another episode? For example, in episode 1, the friend of Sam, who is the friend of Sindibad, in English Sam, it is in Arabic Hassan. Now Sam, who is the friend of Sindibad, breaks something or breaks the jars, and then Sindibad comes and says, "Sir," to the owner of the jars, he says, "It is me who broke the jars and I am responsible for it." Sindibad's father comes and he feels very happy and says to Sindibad, "I like what you did because you saved the life of your friendship, of your friend, because you cherish friendship. So for that reason, I'm not angry with you and I will pay for the jars instead of you." But he thanks him. He thanks him very much. So here we have the word, we have not only courage, but also we have sacrifice, because Sindibad was ready to be punished for something that he hasn't done in order to save his friend. So we have friendship and we have courage. And here at that moment, I have to ask myself, does this theme occur all over the series? In fact, yes. Sacrifice and friendship appear very vividly throughout the series. And what about later on? I find that in Alauddin and Ali Baba, they also sacrifice themselves at the end of the of the series, as well as in the middle and in several other places inside there. So these are recurrent thoughts. It's my duty as as a translator in this series is to do what? Is to look for those motives. Those are the basic elements of the plot itself. And I have to stress that the form is as important as the content. It's even more important. So, in the first episode, I want to stress in the mind of the children the concept of the issue of friendship and sacrifice. So I make the father of Sindibad say, ما فعلته يا سندباد يا بني كان شهما. So the word itself, that I'm using certain words that are very good in Arabic, very positive, because I want to stress this word and I want to stress these incidences. Now, this is the motive that I want first of all to make it bound motive rather than free motive. In other words, this motive will provide for something, and I want to link it up to something else at a different stage. So we have episode 1, 2, 3, 4. If I manage to repeat this motive in one way or another in several episodes, I will be able at the end of the day, which is the last episode, episode number 52, to make it just logical for the children who are watching the film to see how Ala ad-Din, Ali Baba, Yasamina, and Sindibad and others, all of them are united against the devil. So they will remember those things. In order for the child to remember them, I, as a translator, should understand where the bound motives are. And even if they are not bound motives, I have to make them bound motives so that I can make connections between them. And when I make connections between them, I am bolstering and I'm boosting this kind of relationship inside the mind of the child in order to highlight the issue of friendship, courage, patriotism, and sacrifice. I can also prolong the talk of the people depending on how much I am allowed. At the same time, I'm using the rhetoric of Arabic in order to make prominent those parts of the videos where there is something about those values. So these are the values, these are the ideals that I want to represent, and this is my choice that I have to see them and I have to do them. In order to make it more prominent, I have to do two things. First of all, I have to understand that repeating something over time is more fruitful, is more productive than making recurrent mentioning of them consequently without any kind of pauses. Because we know that the brain needs spacing in order to understand the concept. It needs spacing. It needs also prolonging something in order to give the watcher, the person who is watching the film, to give them the ability to understand and to interact with what they are seeing and what we are watching. At a later stage now, after 2 or 3 days of the episode, for example, he watches episode 1 today, after 2 days he watches another episode. So what happens is that he will just remember something in the past, connect it to the present, and then prepares himself for another thing in the future and try to anticipate what will happen. And this is what we call, in other words, a priming. And I am priming the child from the very beginning. Maybe you know the example about the sentence which says, the nurses talked to the doctor. Now it's very natural to say that the word doctor, I understand it more than nurses because I mentioned nurses at the very beginning. So my mind knows that I'm talking about hospitals and nurses. So when I mention doctor, I understand the doctor more even because it is already primed. It's already supported by another stimulus, by something previous there. So these are the motives that I need to do. And I would like just to remind you of something now. This connection between those values that are there, and I'm trying to preserve them in Arabic. So I'm trying to preserve them in Arabic. Those values would form a kind of reality, and this is another problem. Because what happens is that, this is very important, Now, the Japanese authors or producers have their own version of reality of the Arabian Nights. They have presented that in their own way. Now, in my understanding, because I understand the experiential memory of my target group, which is the children in the Arab world who are mostly Muslims, then I understand that the version of reality approached by the people there is totally different from the reality that's approached by the original people. And I am the mediator, and I am the arbiter. I am the one to decide what to do and what not to do. It means also that I have my own perception of reality. So this is the problem. What should I translate now? As I said, translation is a purposeful activity. It's not something that's done haphazardly. I have a purpose and I understand what I am doing. Now here, reality. What kind of reality that I need to imitate? In fact, do I need to imitate something? Or just translate it and let them go to hell? Should I be totally indifferent to them, to their needs, and say I don't care? Should I say, for example, that this is not useful at all, it's totally useless, so what should I bother myself with? And this is actually what translators at the moment are doing. And I have seen once a movie, and it says, will it be okay? And the translation was, هل سيمشي الحال? The answer was, it will be okay. And I read it, نعم سيمشي الحال. This is what I read it. This is indifference. Because they don't care about who reads, they don't care about what happens. Anyway, regardless of this, we have three realities. The one which is in the minds and hearts and souls of the Japanese producer, the other one is in my readers' expectations, who are the children, and the third one, it is in myself, reality. And there is still one reality, however, which is above all, none of us can reach, which is the ideal world, which is the reality in the other world, which is the sacrifice, friendship, courage, patriotism, etc. All of these values belong to a world that we cannot reach. However, am I able to do that? Am I going to be trusted as a translator to do this? The answer to this question is by asking myself two questions. The first one, do I have the mental capacity? And the answer is hopefully yes. The second, do I have virtues? And the answer is yes, as far as I'm concerned. Virtues, I'm not lying, I'm not deceiving any person, I'm not stealing. Do I act to those virtues? I think yes. So as a translator, I trust that I am doing the right thing all the time. I don't lie to people. I'm always honest. I don't break my promise. And I have all these virtues. So I am able to teach people how to have this mental capability and how to be virtuous in life. So I am able to reach out to the children who are going to watch the TV show or the TV series that I'm going to translate. In other words, they are going to be in the safe hands of mine. And I'm going to try my best. I don't want to say that I am going to reach the best of these values, but at least I'm trying just to do my best. So this is kind of reality. And once again, there are, however, certain things that I have to make sure of. The series of the Sindibad itself is imaginary, and you know that the mind does not differentiate between what is imaginary and what is real. This is what the brain does. The brain accepts everything as reality. Now, the issue is that is there anything inside the series, anything that can be real in real life, that be actual, so it can be an imitation of real life? I have here as a translator to take care of this and to see if there are any things that can really happen in real life. I can just, what happens is do some foregrounding just to try to emphasize them so that the children would be able to understand that it's something that they can understand, that they can use in real life. For example, even if it is just a fictitious story, even if it's Arabian Nights, it's just a legend, it doesn't happen in ordinary life. There is some mentioning about the Nile River, which I like in this series, and it gives information about the length of the river, how many kilometers. And this is just paradoxical concerning the type of the legendary series that we have. They don't have miles or kilometers, etc. So I can teach that in kilometers to the to the children. I can add this even if it doesn't exist, for example, in the original text, although it exists. At another time, maybe there is, for example, something about the camels. I may add some information about the camels. In other words, I'm trying to imitate life as it is. And when people are happy, when people are angry, I try to produce these words that would be very natural to the way that Arabs live, rather than the way that the English or the Chinese people live or whatsoever. So this is what I am thinking about to take into consideration when translating all of these things. Well, at the same time, I think I have to understand my prejudices. I must be very aware that I cannot all the time just take an opinion and just do it immediately. I have to ask other people, so I can ask other friends, other translators. This is the way that I want to translate. What do you think about it? In order to ask their own opinions and to make sure that I'm not prejudiced about this. I'm not blind, in other words, I'm not blinded by my own prejudices, in other words. So these are the whole things that I'm thinking about in order to produce this translation. What happens at the end is the following. Let's see these pictures once again. Let me show you this one first. Now remember, I told you about something that we try to foreground and try to make it more visible to deal with the expectation of the target ship.
بغداد أنا لم أعد أذكر منها شيئا.
So Ali Baba was kicked out from Baghdad long time ago, and he says, I don't remember it and I don't care about it. It doesn't accept me. It doesn't give me home to it. And what Sindibad says, just wait for to see the rivers and you will be very happy. But see what Ala ad-Din is saying. Now Ala ad-Din is saying, لا أحد ينسى وطنه مهما كانت ذكرياته. This is in Arabic, of course. It is not similar to the English, by the way.
فكل منا يحمل وطنه على كتفيه أينما يذهب.
فكل منا يحمل وطنه على كتفيه أينما يذهب. أحيانا قد يكون هذا الحمل ثقيلا جدا، لكنك عندما تأتي إليها تضحك لك منازلها وترحب بك وتنسى كل ذلك. And then he says, وهذه مشيئة الله سبحانه وتعالى. This phrase that as translator I'm going to repeat all the time, مشيئة الله سبحانه وتعالى, because I want now to add another value, which is wisdom. So there is wisdom from Ala ad-Din, and I want to stress that wisdom, so I say مشيئة الله سبحانه وتعالى, so that children will understand that in life there would be a person who is wise and who can give them some directions. And I would say مشيئة الله سبحانه وتعالى to make it more religious. However, I found in the series, after the Gestalt perspective, after I get everything about it, some problems concerning the some problems that may distract the children from the ethics and values that I'm talking about. Now here is the first one. Here, this is in the first episode and this is in the last episode. What are these about? Now, what worries me here in the last episode is that this is Satan. He is Satan, and this is Zika, this is his assistant or accomplice, and this is Satan. For that reason, he's blue. And Satan is in his last battle and war with Sindibad and the others, and it ends by his defeat and the victory of Sindibad and other people. So what does he say here? He's very angry because Sindibad and his friends have already defeated his assistants, all of them. Now he says to Zika, he says, Zika, listen to me. And you know how much I hate Allah, not God, Allah. And I want to retrieve or restore my dignity, which was taken away from me by Allah. So this means that he is putting Satan as peer-to-peer to God. And I feel very frightened about this, because there is some fear that this concept of God and the religious people, etc., cannot be understood except especially by children. But most importantly, not because not because of problems related to ideology, but also because of some objective problems. In translation, we talk about natural equivalence, which means that you try to find in the language something that gives you the same meaning as something said to you in English. But here, to say that that Satan is equal to God, just by saying that, you know how I hate God, how I hate Allah, well, this something confuses me, confuses even the readers who will not understand what you mean, because it doesn't exist in their culture. It is similar to the previous exercise when you said, if you remember, something about Peter Pan. Peter Pan, who understands who is Peter Pan? We don't want to Peter Pan. We choose something similar to the Arabic experience so that they can understand it better. And the same thing when you say لا يفتى مالك بالمدينة. Now English you simply say so and so is the best for the job, and that's all. You use something which is natural, provided naturally by the language. For that reason, I will not be able to say this. So I will change it. I will change it into something else, which is like, you know that I hate Sindibad because he loves God. This is what I'm going to change it in translation, I mean. Now here there is a problem. In order to change this is a motive, okay? And it is a bound motive. It's a very important one. It's not free. It's not something that I can omit from the whole series. In order for me to change it, I have to change everything else that's related to it. Because as I said, it's a network that we have to do. It's a network based on priming, and based on all of them are bound motives and they have interconnections between them. So I cannot change something without changing other things. As I said, translation is a purposeful activity, and I have to understand my purpose from the very beginning. So I go back to the first episode. And by the way, interestingly, the first episode and the last episode are well connected. This is a bound motif directly connected with this one. Directly connected with this one. And if I have to change this one, I have to change this one. And I have to change both of them, in fact. This one would make me change this one, and the vice versa. What does he say here? He was praying. Sindibad was praying. And in English he says, it is very hard to pray. Now this is a problem. Why it's a problem? Because I am working as translation as a purposeful activity, and I'm addressing Arab children between the age of 5 and 11. At this age, following the experience, the experiential memory that I am exposed to and I understand as a translator, I know that people teach their children praying is not hard, and they say that to them. So how come that I say something which is opposite to what Sindibad is saying? And can the child really differentiate between imagination and reality? The child will never be able to see this as imagination. He will say, no, this is true. They are saying that it's very hard to pray. And even adults, by the way, as I said, memory does not distinguish between imagination and reality. When it sees something, it is reality for the mind. It's reality for the brain. And it does the priming and the wiring and rewiring and all of these sorts of things. For that reason, I'm changing this into Alhamdulillahi annani anhaytu as-salah. And here, what we say, you know, Zika, تعرفين يا زيكا إنني أكره السندباد ورفاقه لأنهم يحبون الله ويصلون. This is how I'm going now to change the whole thing. You see how I am now putting that this is motive and this is motive. Now I here have a problem. Because I am very frightened as a translator, I will have to make it stick in the minds of the children watching this movie. So I am going to repeat this Alhamdulillah every time. So I can choose Alauddin or even Sindibad or any other person of his friends just to say Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. And here arises the question, am I, by doing this, am I manipulating children? Am I misusing or abusing them? In fact, no, because I said, when talking about reality, I was trying to look for those values that I found in the text or in the series, and then I asked myself, do I have the mental capability? I said yes. Am I virtuous without any prejudice? I say yes. And then I checked my prejudices and said to you that I will talk to other people in order to consult them with these things so that I am not blinded to my own prejudices, and I will be able to get them. So, in fact, it's not that predetermined. It's not determinism here that works. However, if I really change one motive, then I am now forced to go to the whole series and try to add more words in order to make them stick in the mind of the child. How? It is by repetition, and most importantly by priming. Priming requires not only repetition but also requires emphasis to be placed on certain motives so that they have the network of connections between them. Now in this way I think I'm finished with the translation, and after I finish the translation I think it's going to be ready to be performed by an artist, and I promise that it's going to be a masterpiece because I'm following all of these rules, etc. In brief, this is what I wanted to say, and I hope that you got just a kind of ideas about how philosophy is important. I'm not sure if you agree with me or not that philosophy is really important. But remember, this is the way that I think. This is what I have in my brain here, and this is how I translate. I'm doing all of these things, and in the past few lectures I already explained everything to you. This presentation was a practical exercise just to apply the same thing that you have learned. I'm looking for your reflections and to see if you got the points or not correctly. If there is any kind of question that you would like to ask me, I would be pleased, of course, to answer. At the same time, I'd like to just remember that this exercise that I'm giving, it's already translated, of course, into Arabic. I'm just trying to bring you an ideal thing that can bring together all of those philosophies and all of those ideas together, from psychology, from philosophy, from neuroscience, from everywhere. I included all of them. All the schools that I have told you about, I think they are included if you followed me correctly. Thank you very much for listening. I think now the floor is open for discussions. I will stop the recording, I think, and you can now just ask any question, or most importantly, I need to know if you got what I mean or not. And I promise this is the last philosophical or psychological or whatsoever intervention, and then we move to something more practical. Thank you very much.